We have a whole business committee and team that is involved from day one on every single thing that's being considered. So it's a very collaborative approach. I think that you really want to kind of isolate your pilots for longer periods of time with a smaller group of people who are motivated and interested. To the extent you can find things that have already been vetted, look at those and try to get referrals and confirmation, affirmation that it works before you try to build it yourself or get into a super early stage.
Welcome to StitchStudio's Pilot to Production. In this series, we're interviewing insurance executives, investors, and consultants to hear real stories of how the industry is operationalizing AI in insurance. From carriers and brokerages to technology partners and investors, you'll gain practical insights, implementation strategies, and lessons learned from the leaders driving enterprise-scale adoption, moving from pilots to implementing responsible, predictable, and explainable AI. I'm Karan Mishra, CEO of StitchStudio, and this is Pilot to Production.
John, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. One of the things I always think about when I meet business leaders who've been in this space for a long time is that you've seen several technology waves like this, right? Like it's not the first time people are talking about industry changing technology, right? But this time it does feel different because of the pace at which we're changing. To me, this kind of a pace comes with the excitement, but also the uncertainty and the fear that comes with it. It's just from a business perspective, how are you looking at it? Like, what is your approach to this sort of a pace and also the way we are going through it this?
You know, I'd say that our approach to it, I think we're a little bit fortunate in that leading up to this, we already had a fairly sophisticated insurtech committee and team that is constantly evaluating insurtechs and early stage startups and being really actively involved in the innovation side of insurance. They find us. So they're constantly, these early stage startups, even just ideas, are constantly finding us and asking us for our opinion and our feedback and that sort of stuff. So it can be a bit overwhelming at times, but we figured out sort of how to corral it and manage the just monitoring and evaluating of all the technology for insurance that's out there. And then also starting to dig a level deeper in the evaluation and the piloting and the engagement and maybe every once in a while an actual implementation. So, and we've also been actively involved in like Brokerage Ventures or, early days and things even before that where we were involved in investing in insurtech and that sort of thing. So I bring all that up only because we're, I'd say, a little bit sort of ahead of the curve when it comes to all this innovation, this AI innovation coming at us because we're sort of, we've got some base infrastructure to deal with it, right? And, evaluate it. And so that's been really, really good. We have gone to the next level of building out a couple of, actually 3 AI committees that are specifically doing a combination of looking at what's coming at us and looking at what we see internally as opportunities for AI to potentially solve. So there's, looking at it from both sides. So that's the start of our approach to it. And I think we're doing pretty well with it. We've had some implementations and we've done, a number of different things and we've had a lot of challenges with it as well. So I think we will continue to, but that's been kind of our position and our approach.
Yeah, like someone who's gone through that sort of framework that's in place already, what struck me from like an outsider coming in perspective is there is like a spectrum of how organizations are approaching AI, working with AI vendors or AI projects in general, right? I've seen folks who come at it as like, hey, this is a CIO function. It needs to be a technology-driven sort of like figuring out which business operations this needs to fit in. And other organizations are going the other side where there's an operations-driven decision and then coming at it and figuring, looping the IT at a later point. In the way that we have gone and, this is my perception of this coming an outsider in, it seems like you guys have figured out the right mix because it feels like when in the projects that we're involved with, it's very much like a both type of every meeting I had both sort of parties always, which I feel like simplifies conversations quite a bit, right? You're never guessing like, is this going to be okay with the team or is this going to be used by the operations? It's still, if I were to put it on a spectrum, it's still a little bit more ops focused. It needs to be because we're automating things that the operations users are using, but it always has a IT representation in every decisions we're making, which I feel like was very unique in the way you guys are operating it. All right, so just to notice. And how are you, like from your vantage point, like you're sort of managing this whole thing, how are you Is that like a decision you guys made on you want this to be an IT leading thing or an ops leading thing? Is it like is it a different way you look at it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think early days, it was actually very much of a business side leading the charge because we know our needs, we know what can impact and what can't. And then we bring IT in to make sure everything's safe and secure and can integrate with our systems and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
But as time went on and as we brought on Kate Grassman, who's very much of a big picture thinker and understands the business and quickly was able to see both sides of the aisle, we handed off the majority of the lead point person on all of this to her. She corrals it all, but we have a whole business committee and team that is involved from day one on every single thing that's being considered. So so it's a very collaborative approach, but she sort of keeps track of the inventory of all the different things that we're looking at, really evaluating, doing initial pilots, etc.
Got it. That is pretty cool. That is really cool. I get it.
Yeah, it works well, but you have to have the business in it. I mean, you have to have the business in it. Otherwise, it just breaks down.
I agree with you. Part of what I always consider in terms of productionization of AI use cases is it's not just the initial deployment, but you kind of have to train them to train the AI. You know what I mean? Like the product experience has to be done in a way that every interaction AI can learn from. And that's sort of how you build organizational value, because once you get business users to sort of make it part of their experience to give feedback and train the AI based on it, then it becomes part of, that's what adds value to the organization, right? Over a long time. Yeah, I get excited by things.
When it changes the way that you're engaging with at the early days, because we used to launch an InsurTech initiative or a pilot, and that technology is pretty well baked, right? And it works. The start of the pilot, whereas with AI models, right, you got to train them. And so that takes a whole level of time before you can really.
That is correct. We spend a lot of time in figuring out how do we deploy something that sort of gets you to 70, 80% really quickly. And then how do you get from 80 to 100% over time? And because it's never the 80% today is not the same 80% what's going to be next month, because things have changed. So you kind of have to work through this, right? So you need to always get, and it cannot always be the vendors coming in and playing like that thing. It needs to be managed by the business users. So that's where the real value is. We spend a lot of time figuring out how do we enable that? How do we enable so that business users are actually owning this in that sense, right?
Yeah, it also creates a challenge though, that I think can carry over to a lot of down the road implementations that you try to make, in that, when we try to get our users to engage and pilot something, yet they're having to go through so much to train it, and they get through all that training, and then they find out, actually, it doesn't take me from A to Z. It only gets me to, you know what I mean? And now I've invested all this time and we're not even going to use it.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
That's the challenge. Whereas with non-AI, technology, you can kind of pilot, dislike, and move on.
That is right. Yeah, exactly. It's a more predictable. So the approach to how you evaluate software completely changed. The way we look at it is like, how do I get it to a point where it's actually useful today? It's not like you have to go through a period, but there is an upkeep that you need to enable the users to be able to do it by themselves, right? That's the mental framework shift. Yeah. And you sort of started touching this, Sean, but I wanted to sort of pull this thread a little bit more. Because you've already deployed a couple of AI use cases or few AI use cases across, what kind of challenges are you seeing? Because I wanted to sort of touch upon it as is there anything that you would tell other organizations that are doing this as focus on these three things or one thing that'll change the way you're approaching it? Is there any advice or lessons learned type of thing that you would like to share?
I mean, I kind of touched on it, right? I think that you really want to kind of isolate your pilots for longer periods of time with a smaller group of people who are motivated and interested in doing it for the business, right? For the team, because it's going to take some time, and also knowing that the outcome may not be what you expected it to be, right? So really going in eyes open on that. One thing. Another thing is, to the extent that you don't have to be the agency or the customer doing that,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
and you can benefit from what they've already done, and you can, come in and at a little bit later stage and adopt the technology that's already really been trained. Asking those questions a lot from a prospective agency that's looking at bringing AI into their organization. To the extent you can find things that have already been vetted,
Yeah.
go look at those and try to get referrals and affirmation that it works before you try to build it yourself or get into a super early stage one. You have to have a lot of resources and patience to jump in and do it from early stage.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense. Yeah. I always say this, that there is with the AI, the only way that the AI will be useful for organizations if it is specifically tuned to that organization, right? Because if not, its accuracy just won't match with what the expectation is. And so the product is really not the end product that the end users are seeing. The product then becomes, how do I get organizational's mind map into this AI so that AI will start thinking and behaving like someone else working in the organization, right? And if I do it that way, then the value that I'm building, it's not just simply for one use case, it's across multiple use cases. And I can harness, like, the more there's a network effect that starts building, the more use cases I build, the smarter my AI gets, the easier it is to launch, the cheaper it is to launch. So that's sort of the network effect I see. But I sort of started thinking about it in the way you phrased, look for things that are already like working and then sort of go off of that. When you go off of that, the future use cases becomes a lot easier and cheaper and faster.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is when you are sort of building or trying to really customize for your own needs, really storyboard it out with your AI innovation partner, your developer partner and I've been talking with our team about this and Stitch, right, on some of your guys' stuff is, hey, this is great, but we need to understand what the full picture looks like.
That's exactly.
So storyboard this thing out before you start developing too much, because different mindsets work different ways and they aren't seeing everything the same way everybody else is. So you really want to lay it out in advance.
No, I agree. I love that. We love that, right? Because it gives us a line of sight into what the future vision is and what we're building towards. And there's a lot of decisions you can make ahead of time that will enable or make it harder to meet the last mile needs. So it's good to know what that thing looks like, right? Like the storyboarding is important. You're right. John, one last thing, and then we can wrap it up from there. So just looking at the future of where you are today with all the use cases that you're going after and in production, what do you think success looked like for you with AI? If you just projected like 5 years or 2 to 5 years.
5 years is a long one.
Yeah, especially in AI world, 5 years is a long. I should never say 5 years in this case, because I don't know where we are going to be with all the, every week we get something new. So what do you think? What does the success metric look like for you? What are you going at?
I think there's a few different success metrics, I'd say. One's the obvious, just a cost reduction. Being able to have physical, fixed cost reduction is great. Something you always want to do with other costs rising. So that's an obvious one. The next one is really just as our world gets more complicated and there's more information available to everybody, we have to innovate and figure out how to offer new value propositions to our customers, bring different information, bring different risk management resources and capabilities, and more different customer experiences for our customer, because they are going to continue to be able to get answers to questions that they used to have to come to us for on their own.
Yeah.
Part of the success is very difficult to measure, but we need to be in a position that we are bringing those new solutions and capabilities to our customers, not like behind the gun, having to do it because we find ourselves displaced or something.
Right.
So it's a very difficult thing to measure, but it's where we see, we sort of need to stay ahead of that so that we are continuing to evolve with the world and what's happening in the world, not just our industry.
Hit the nail on the head, right? For me, it's, yes, the cost reduction is one thing, but what it really affords is the time and the headspace to go focus on what's more important from a customer perspective. It focuses on enabling customer experiences that's simply not possible today, right? Because we're just so much more heads down on what we, staying above the water type of thing, right?
Right.
Like that's kind of where
Right.
we are. We need to be in a thriving mode.
We'd also like our employees to be able to, spend more of their time in their high-level skill sets, using their high-level skill sets versus, administrative things that can be automated.
That's awesome. Again, thank you. That's all the questions I have, John. Thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else you would like to add, John, before we wrap up?
No, I don't think so. I appreciate the partnership we've had with you. You guys have been fantastic, and we're excited to see where this journey together takes us. We're doing something that we really need, so it's going to be great.
Thanks for watching. You can subscribe to our show on YouTube or by following us on LinkedIn. And please consider giving us a rating or a review so it helps others to find our show. Visit StitchStudio.ai to learn more about our applied AI solution built for insurance. See you soon.